Listen, I funded my wife's cancer treatment for 2 years. 2 years. I worked 3 jobs, borrowed money from everyone I knew, sold everything I owned. I sent her thousands of dollars every single month so she could stay alive. I thought she was in another state getting specialized treatment, fighting for her life, but she was never sick. There was no cancer, no treatment, no doctors. She was living it up with her lover, spending my money on luxury vacations while I destroyed myself trying to save her. And when I found out the truth, man, I didn't just confront her. I planned something she'll never forget. I'm 34 years old, and today I'm going to tell you how the woman I loved more than anything turned out to be the best liar I've ever met. This whole nightmare started about 2 years ago. I remember the exact day. It was a Tuesday evening. I got home from work and immediately I could tell something was off. My wife was sitting on the couch, just staring at this manila envelope in her hands. She looked pale, shaking, like she'd seen a ghost. I sat down next to her and asked what was wrong. She didn't say anything at first, just kept staring at that envelope. Then she looked at me with these tears in her eyes and told me she needed to show me something. She'd been feeling sick for a few weeks, she said. Fatigue, some pain, just not feeling right. So she'd gone to the doctor without telling me because she didn't want me to worry. They ran some tests. She pulled papers out of that envelope and spread them on the coffee table. Medical documents, lab results, pages of technical terminology I couldn't even pronounce. But I saw one word clear as day: malignant. My hands went numb. I felt like someone had punched all the air out of my lungs. She told me it was cancer. Stage 2. Treatable, but aggressive. The doctors had caught it early enough that she had good odds, but she needed to start treatment immediately. I remember asking her what we needed to do, where we needed to go, how much it would cost. I didn't care about the money. I didn't care about anything except making sure she beat this thing. She explained that her oncologist had recommended this specialized treatment center in another state. Apparently, they had cutting-edge protocols there, experimental treatments that weren't available locally. It was expensive, she told me, but it was our best shot. I didn't even hesitate. I told her we'd do whatever it takes. Sell the house if we had to. I wasn't going to lose her. She explained that the treatment plan was intense. She'd need to stay out there for months at a time, maybe 3 or 4 months per cycle, because the doctors needed her close by for constant monitoring and intensive therapy sessions. She could only come home for a few weeks between treatment cycles to rest before starting the next round. Brother, I became a completely different person overnight. Sleep became optional. I kept my regular job, but picked up weekend shifts at a warehouse. Started doing freelance work at night, whatever I could find. I'd work 16, sometimes 8-hour days. My body was running on coffee and adrenaline. I sold my car. Started taking the bus everywhere. We sold our second TV, my gaming console, my bike, anything we didn't absolutely need. Every dollar went into her treatment fund. My parents sent money when they could. Her parents, too. They were devastated, obviously. Our friends organized fundraisers. People we barely knew were donating because that's what you do when someone's fighting cancer, right? Everyone rallied around us. Every single month, like clockwork, I'd wire her between $4,000 and $6,000, sometimes more. Plane tickets to get out there, extended stay hotel near the medical center, meals, medications, treatment costs. It added up so damn fast. Some months she'd say they needed to run extra tests or adjust her protocol, and it would spike to 7,000 or 8,000. She'd text me throughout the day. Treatment was brutal, she'd tell me. The side effects were manageable but rough. The doctors were hopeful about her progress. She missed me so much. And I'd respond telling her to stay strong, that I loved her more than anything, that we were going to beat this together even though I couldn't be there physically. I missed her like crazy. Our apartment felt empty without her. But I kept telling myself this was temporary. She'd get through this, come home for good, and we'd start our life over. All this sacrifice, all this pain, it would be worth it. The thing is, looking back now, and man, I've had a lot of time to look back, the signs were everywhere. I just didn't want to see them. She never video called me from the hospital, only from her hotel room. And whenever I'd ask to see the medical center or where she was staying, she'd have an excuse ready. The lighting was bad. She was too exhausted. The hospital had strict privacy policies about filming. There was always something. Here's what should have set off alarm bells. She looked healthy every time she came home. Cancer patients going through aggressive treatment, they lose weight. They lose their hair. They look sick. She never lost her hair. Not once. When I'd bring it up, she'd explain that they were using targeted therapy instead of traditional chemo, so the side effects were different. That made sense to me at the time. I'd beg her to let me visit, to fly out there and sit with her during treatment, but she always talked me out of it. We couldn't afford 2 plane tickets, she'd say. I needed to keep working to pay for everything. She was fine. The nurses were taking good care of her, saved the money for treatment. I asked multiple times if I could speak with her doctors, just to understand her prognosis better, to hear it straight from them. She'd tell me they were too busy, that they didn't really take calls from family members. And besides, I wouldn't understand all the medical jargon anyway. She barely understood it herself. And here's the part that kills me now. Every few months when she'd come home between treatment cycles, she looked rested, refreshed. Sometimes she even had a tan. She'd laugh it off and say she'd been sitting by the hotel pool on her rest days because the doctors encouraged gentle sun exposure for vitamin D. I believed every single word. Why wouldn't I? This was my wife, the woman I'd promised to spend my life with. The idea that someone would lie about having cancer, that didn't even register as a possibility in my mind. So I kept working myself to death, kept sending money, kept believing that I was saving the love of my life. I had no idea I was actually funding her vacation with another man. Our 5th wedding anniversary was coming up, and she was in the middle of another treatment cycle. She'd already been gone for 2 months, with at least another month to go. I was sitting at home one night after work, completely exhausted, looking at our wedding photos on my phone, and something just hit me. I needed to see her. I needed to be there for her. I needed to remind her that she wasn't fighting this alone. So I started planning this surprise. I saved up money in secret, which wasn't easy considering I was already stretched so thin. Skipped lunches, worked extra overtime shifts, and didn't tell her about the additional income. Every spare dollar went into a separate account. It took me about 6 weeks to save enough for a plane ticket and a week off work. Taking time off was huge. I hadn't taken a single day off in 2 years. Not one. My boss was actually concerned when I put in the request. Asked if everything was okay. I told him I needed to see my wife, that it was our anniversary, and he approved it immediately. I was so excited during that flight, man. I kept imagining her face when I knocked on her hotel room door. I'd rehearsed what I was going to say probably 100 times. Brought flowers. Had reservations at a nice restaurant. I wanted to take her to dinner, hold her hand, just be there for her, even if it was only for a few days. The plane landed, and I took a cab straight to the hotel. I had the address memorized. She'd mentioned the name of this place dozens of times over the past 2 years. It was supposedly close to the medical center, within walking distance, which is why she stayed there. I walked into that lobby with flowers in my hand and my heart pounding. Went straight to the front desk. Told the receptionist I was there to surprise my wife. Gave them her name. Explained she'd been a long-term guest there for months. The receptionist typed something into their computer. Then stopped. Frowned. Typed some more. Looked back up at me with this confused expression. and said they didn't have anyone by that name registered. No current guest, no past guest. Nothing in their system. I felt my stomach drop. Like, literally felt it fall. I insisted she had to be there. This was definitely the place. She'd told me the name so many times. The receptionist checked again. Even called a manager over. They were polite but firm. Nobody by that name had ever stayed there. Maybe I had the wrong hotel. Maybe she'd mentioned a different one and I got confused. I pulled out my phone to call her, to just ask which hotel she was actually at. It went straight to voicemail. I left a message trying to keep my voice light and excited, said I was in town and to call me back. I stood in that lobby for a few minutes, just holding those flowers, feeling this creeping wrongness starting to spread through my chest. Something wasn't adding up. I decided to go to the hospital. The cancer center she'd been going to for 2 years. Maybe she'd gotten confused about the hotel name. Maybe she'd moved to a different place and forgot to mention it. There had to be a logical explanation, right? I found the hospital, walked up to the main information desk, told them my wife was a patient there, receiving oncology treatment, and could they point me to the right department? Maybe let her know I was there to surprise her. They pulled up their system, searched, then searched again. The woman at the desk looked at me with this sympathetic expression and said they had no record of her, not as a current patient, not as a former patient, not even as someone who'd come in for a consultation. I insisted there had to be a mistake. I explained she'd been coming there for treatments for almost 2 years. 2 years. The woman was very kind but very clear. If she'd been a patient there, she'd be in their system. Period. There was nobody by that name. I just stood there in that hospital lobby, and for the first time, real panic started setting in. Not the panic of thinking something bad had happened to her. The panic of realizing something was very, very wrong with her entire story. I pulled out my phone right there and found the photos I'd saved of those medical documents she showed me 2 years ago. The diagnosis papers, the treatment plan, the doctor's name and signature at the bottom. I zoomed in on the doctor's name and Googled it standing right there in the hospital lobby. Nothing came up. I searched with the hospital name attached. Still nothing. I searched medical databases, doctor registries, everything I could think of. This doctor didn't exist. I felt like the ground was shifting under my feet. Those documents had looked so official. They had the hospital logo, professional letterhead, everything. But now I was standing in that actual hospital, and they'd never heard of my wife or this doctor. Everything was fake. The documents were fake. The treatment was fake. The whole thing was a lie. I didn't go home right away. I couldn't. I got a hotel room in that city, and I didn't sleep that entire night. Just sat there on the edge of the bed, my mind absolutely racing, trying to make sense of what was happening. Part of me wanted to call her right then, demand answers, scream at her. But something told me to wait, if she was lying about this. And I still couldn't fully wrap my head around the idea. Then, confronting her now would just give her time to come up with more lies, more excuses. I needed proof. Real, undeniable, concrete proof of what was actually going on. The next morning, I found a private investigator. Just Googled investigators in the area and picked one with good reviews. I walked into his office and I must have looked completely insane because I was running on 0 sleep and my hands were shaking. I gave him everything I had. Her phone number, email address, social media accounts, all the dates she'd claimed to be getting treatment. I showed him the fake medical documents, told him I needed to know where she really was and what she was really doing. He looked through everything I gave him and said he'd have answers for me in a week, maybe 2. Asked if I was sure I wanted to know the truth. I told him I'd never been more sure of anything in my life. I flew home and went back to work, tried to act normal, but I was like a zombie, just going through the motions. She'd call and I'd answer. act like everything was fine. She'd complain about how difficult treatment had been that day, and I'd comfort her, tell her to stay strong, that I loved her. She'd mention needing money for some new medication or test, and I'd send it without question, even though every single transfer made me feel physically sick now. But inside, I was dying. Every hour that passed felt like a year. Waiting for that investigator to call back was the longest 2 weeks of my entire life. And when he finally did call, when he told me I needed to come to his office because this wasn't something he wanted to explain over the phone. The way he said it, I just knew. I knew it was going to be bad. I had no idea just how bad it actually was. I drove to his office as soon as I could get away from work. Told my boss I had a family emergency, which wasn't technically a lie. Sat in that investigator's office, and he slid this folder across the desk to me. Thick folder. He looked at me and said what he'd found wasn't good, that I should prepare myself. I opened it. First thing I saw were printouts of emails. He'd managed to access her email account somehow. I didn't ask how. Didn't want to know about the legality of it. I just needed to know the truth. Flight confirmations. Dozens of them. But the destinations weren't the city where the medical center was supposed to be. They were vacation cities. Cancun, Miami, the Bahamas, Las Vegas, resort destinations, party destinations. And the dates? The dates matched up perfectly with when she told me she was getting treatment. Hotel reservations at 5-star properties, beachfront suites, all-inclusive luxury packages, presidential suites with ocean views, places that cost more per night than I was making in a week. And every single reservation had 2 guest names on it. Hers and some guy named Marcus. Never heard of him. Had no idea who he was. Then the investigator showed me printed screenshots from Instagram. This Marcus guy's account was public. Completely public. Like they weren't even trying to hide it. And there she was. In photo after photo after photo. My wife. The woman who was supposed to be fighting for her life. Looking healthy as hell. Smiling bigger than I'd seen her smile in years. Wearing a bikini on a white sand beach. Holding colorful drinks with umbrellas in them. Kissing this guy by an infinity pool with crystal blue water behind them. One photo caption said something about paradise with his queen. Another one said they were 2 months in and just getting started. Another showed them at some fancy restaurant. Candlelight, champagne, and the caption talked about the best decision they'd ever made. I scrolled through those printouts and my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the papers. The investigator kept talking, showing me more receipts, credit card statements, more evidence, but I couldn't really hear him anymore. There was this ringing in my ears. This feeling like I was falling even though I was sitting down. 2 years. 2 entire years of my life. There was no cancer. There was no treatment. There were no doctors, no hospitals, no experimental therapy, no life-saving protocols. None of it existed. She'd been on vacation. Extended vacation. With her boyfriend. Using my money. Money that I'd destroyed myself to earn. Money I'd borrowed from my parents. From her parents. From friends. Money that strangers had donated at fundraisers because they thought they were helping save someone's life. While I was working 3 jobs, sleeping 4 hours a night, living on instant ramen and coffee, barely surviving. She was on a beach somewhere, laughing, drinking champagne, getting a tan, living her absolute best life with another man. The investigator told me he'd found more. Bank records showing she'd opened credit cards in both our names without telling me, charged luxury items on them. Designer clothes, jewelry, spa treatments, all sent to a PO box I didn't know existed. He showed me text message records he'd somehow obtained. Messages between her and this Marcus guy going back almost 3 years. Planning the whole thing. Talking about how much longer they could keep it going. Laughing about how easy it was. How I believed everything. There was one message where she told him I'd just sent another $6,000. His response was something about booking that resort in Turks and Caicos they'd been wanting to try. She sent back a bunch of celebration emojis. I sat in that office for probably an hour after he finished showing me everything, just staring at those papers spread across his desk. He asked if I was okay, if I needed water, if there was someone he could call. I told him I was fine, which was obviously a lie, but I didn't know what else to say. Then something shifted inside me. The devastation started hardening, turning into something colder, something focused. I asked him if I could keep copies of everything. He said absolutely. He'd already made a complete report for me, organized it all chronologically, put it in a binder, professional, thorough, everything documented and dated. I paid him, thanked him for his work, and walked out of there with that binder tucked under my arm like it was the most valuable thing I'd ever owned. Because it was. It was evidence. It was proof. It was ammunition. And I was going to use every single page of it. I didn't go home right away. Drove around for a while. Ended up in an empty parking lot, just sitting in my car staring at nothing. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me wanted to cry. Part of me wanted to scream until my lungs gave out. Part of me wanted to run away and never look back. But mostly I just felt cold, empty, like someone had reached inside my chest and pulled out everything that made me human. I thought about the past 2 years, every sacrifice I'd made, every hour of overtime, every missed meal, every time I told myself it was worth it because I was saving her life. Every conversation where she'd cried and told me how scared she was, how much she loved me, how grateful she was that I was fighting alongside her. All of it was theater, a performance. She'd looked me in the eyes hundreds of times and lied. Lied about being sick. Lied about where she was. Lied about what she was doing. Lied about loving me. And I believed her. Completely. Totally. Without question. Eventually, I drove home. She called that night. Right on schedule. Started telling me about her day at treatment. How exhausting it had been. How the nurses were so kind to her. How she missed me so much and couldn't wait to come home. I listened to her voice and heard nothing but lies. Every word out of her mouth was poison, but I played my part. Told her I loved her. Asked if she needed anything. Said I'd send more money at the end of the week when I got paid. She thanked me. Told me I was the best husband in the world. Said she didn't know how she'd get through this without me. I hung up and sat there in the dark apartment. Didn't turn on any lights. Just sat there. And that's when I decided I wasn't going to just confront her. I wasn't going to just file for divorce and walk away. That would be too easy. Too clean. She'd spent 2 years lying to me. 2 years stealing from me. 2 years making a fool out of me while she lived in paradise with another man. I was going to make sure she paid for every single second of it. I called the investigator back the next morning. Told him I needed him to keep monitoring her, track her movements, document everything. I wanted a complete timeline of where she really was versus where she told me she was. I wanted photos, receipts, everything. Then I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. I found a woman who specialized in divorce and fraud cases. Had a reputation for being ruthless. Made an appointment for that afternoon. I walked into her office with my binder. Sat down and opened it on her desk. Showed her everything. The fake medical documents. The real flight records. The hotel bookings. The Instagram photos, the text messages, the credit card fraud, all of it. She went quiet as she looked through everything. Took her time, read every page carefully. Then she looked up at me, and I'll never forget what she said. She told me this was one of the most egregious cases of fraud she'd ever seen. That we could absolutely work with this. that we could really work with this. And then she smiled. Not a friendly smile. A predator's smile. That's when I knew I'd found the right lawyer. We spent the next 2 hours planning. Strategy. Timeline. How to protect my assets. How to document everything. How to build an airtight case. She said we needed to be smart about this. Patient. Methodical. I told her I had time. I'd waited 2 years thinking I was saving my wife's life. I could wait a little longer to destroy it. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a machine. But a different kind of machine than before. Before, I was a desperate worker trying to save my dying wife. Now I was strategic, cold, methodical. Every move calculated. My lawyer guided me through everything. First thing we did was protect my assets. I removed her name from my life insurance policy. She'd been the sole beneficiary. Now she got nothing. Removed her from my will completely. Removed her as beneficiary on all my retirement accounts, my investment accounts, everything. Then we started documenting. I had bank statements going back 2 years. Every wire transfer. Every payment. Every single dollar I'd sent her. We organized it all chronologically, created spreadsheets, calculated the total. It came out to $143,000. That's what I'd sent her over 2 years. My lawyer told me to keep copies of everything in multiple places. Cloud storage, physical copies, USB drives. She said we were building a case for fraud, not just infidelity, and we needed ironclad documentation. She filed for legal separation, not divorce yet. That was strategy. She explained that filing for separation first would let us control the timeline, lock down assets, prevent her from claiming marital rights to anything I earned going forward. Then we froze the joint accounts. Legally, I was allowed to do that if I suspected fraud or misuse of marital funds. And boy, did I have evidence of misuse. My lawyer filed the paperwork and boom, accounts frozen. She couldn't access a penny. But here's the thing. She didn't know yet. She had no idea any of this was happening. She was still out there living her fantasy life, thinking I was the same stupid, devoted husband sending money like clockwork. Now came the fun part, the trap. I waited until evening. Made sure my voice would sound tired and stressed when I called her. Let it ring a few times before she picked up. She answered all cheerful, asked how my day was, started telling me about her treatment session. I cut her off, told her we had a serious problem, made my voice sound panicked, said the bank had frozen our accounts, some kind of fraud investigation that they wouldn't explain to me. I'd gone in there trying to make a transfer, and they told me all our accounts were locked pending investigation. Could take weeks to resolve, maybe longer. The change in her voice was instant. She went from cheerful to panicked in half a second. Asked what I meant. How could they freeze the accounts? What was I supposed to do? How was she supposed to pay for treatment? I told her I didn't know, that I was trying to figure it out, that I'd talked to the bank manager and they wouldn't give me any details. Said something about suspicious activity and federal regulations. I made it sound like I was as confused and helpless as she was pretending to be. She asked what she was supposed to do about her treatment. Where was she supposed to stay? The hotel payment was due in 2 days. She had appointments scheduled. The doctors needed payment up front for the next treatment cycle. I told her I had no idea, that I literally couldn't access any money right now. My hands were tied. Maybe she should think about coming home until we got this sorted out. We'd figure something out together. Apply for loans. Maybe her parents could help. Something. Long silence on the other end. I could practically hear her mind racing. Then she said she couldn't leave in the middle of treatment. It was a critical point in her therapy. The doctors had said if she stopped now, it could undo all the progress she'd made. I said I understood, but I didn't see another option. I had no way to send money. None. Every account was frozen. She got quiet again, then said she needed to talk to her doctors, figure out what to do. She'd call me back. I hung up and waited. My lawyer had warned me this next part was crucial. We needed her to come home on her own. If I demanded she come back, if I pressured her too hard, it could complicate things legally. But if she chose to come home because the money dried up, that was different. That showed her true priorities. 48 hours later, my phone rang. It was her. She said she'd talked to her doctors and they'd agreed she could take a break from treatment. Actually, they'd recommended it. Said she'd been responding so well that a short break would be fine. Let her body rest before the next intensive cycle. Funny how those doctors suddenly recommended a break the second the money stopped flowing, right? She said she'd already booked a flight home, would be back in 3 days. Asked if I could pick her up from the airport. I told her, of course, that I'd missed her so much that I couldn't wait to see her. And honestly, that last part was true. I couldn't wait to see her. Not because I missed her, but because I was about to destroy her entire world, and I wanted a front row seat. Those 3 days waiting for her to come home were strange. I felt calm, focused, no more anger, no more hurt, just this cold determination. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I called both our families, told them I wanted to have a celebration dinner when she got home. She'd been through so much, we all had, and I thought it would be good for everyone to get together. See her. Spend time as a family. My mom thought it was a wonderful idea. Her parents were thrilled. Everyone immediately said yes. I told them I'd handle all the arrangements, rent a private room at a nice restaurant. Make it special. I also called an audiovisual company. Told them I needed a large projection screen and equipment set up in the private dining room. Said I was putting together a tribute presentation. They thought it was sweet. Booked them for the same night. Everything was falling into place. The day she flew home, I went to the airport with flowers. Stood there at arrivals waiting for her. When she came through those doors pulling her suitcase, she looked good, healthy, tan, rested. Not like someone who'd just spent months in intensive cancer treatment. I hugged her, handed her the flowers, told her how much I'd missed her, asked how she was feeling. She said tired but okay, that the break from treatment would be good for her. We drove home and I played the role of concerned, devoted husband perfectly. Asked about her flights, how the last treatment session had gone, whether the doctors had given her any specific instructions for the break. She answered everything smoothly, kept up her lies without missing a beat. A few days later, I brought up the dinner, told her I'd arranged something special. Both our families wanted to see her. Everyone would be there. She thought it was a lovely idea. Said she'd love to see everyone. I told her I'd been working on something, a presentation, photos and videos from the past 2 years, a tribute to her strength and courage, something to show everyone how proud we all were of her. She actually teared up, told me I was the most thoughtful husband in the world, that she was so lucky to have me. I smiled and told her she had no idea how special this night was going to be. And she didn't. She had absolutely no idea what was coming. The night of the dinner came. I'd rented a private room at this nice restaurant downtown. Not too fancy, but nice enough. The kind of place where you celebrate important things. The audiovisual company had set everything up earlier that day. Big projection screen at the front of the room. Professional setup. They'd asked what kind of presentation I was showing, and I just said it was a family tribute. They thought it was sweet. Everyone started arriving around 6. My parents came first. Then her parents, her sister and brother, my brother, close friends, about 20 people total. Everyone dressed nice. Everyone in good spirits. The energy in that room was something else. People were hugging, laughing, catching up. Both mothers were already crying before we even sat down. Just emotional seeing everyone together. Proud of my wife's strength and courage, her dad found me near the bar, shook my hand hard, pulled me in for a hug, told me I was an exceptional man, that not every husband would have stood by their wife like I did, that he was grateful his daughter had married someone with such integrity. I thanked him, told him I just did what any husband would do. He said no, that I'd gone above and beyond, that he'd never forget what I'd done for his daughter. People kept coming up to her, hugging her, telling her how strong she was, how brave, how inspiring. My mom held her hands and told her she was a fighter, that she was so proud of her, that she'd never seen someone face something so difficult with such grace. She sat there at the head of the table just glowing, soaking it all in, playing her role absolutely perfectly, humble but grateful, tired but happy. The picture of a cancer survivor surrounded by love and support. We ordered drinks. Appetizers came out. Everyone was talking, mingling, having a good time. The room felt warm, happy, full of love and relief. Then I stood up, tapped my glass with a fork to get everyone's attention. The room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at me. She was smiling. Probably thought I was about to give some emotional speech about how proud I was of her, how grateful I was that she'd beaten cancer, how much I loved her. I said I wanted to thank everyone for coming, that it meant the world to both of us. I said the past 2 years had been the hardest of my life, that I'd learned a lot about strength, about sacrifice, about what really matters, about who people really are. Then I said I'd put together a presentation, some things I wanted to share with everyone, some things I'd recently learned that I thought everyone deserved to know. I picked up the remote control. Her smile faltered just slightly, like some instinct was telling her something wasn't right, but it was too late. I clicked the button. The screen behind me lit up. First slide. A spreadsheet. Clean. Professional. Flight records showing dozens of flights over 2 years with her name on every ticket. But the destinations column, the destinations weren't the city with the medical center. They were vacation destinations. Cancun, Miami, Las Vegas, the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos. The dates in the next column matched perfectly with every period she'd told me she was getting treatment. People started leaning forward, squinting at the screen, confused, not understanding what they were looking at yet. Second slide. Hotel reservations. Professional letterhead from luxury resorts. 5-star properties. Beachfront suites. Presidential packages. All-inclusive luxury. Each reservation clearly showing 2 guest names, hers and Marcus Williams. The confusion in the room started shifting. People were frowning now, looking at each other, looking at her, looking back at the screen. Third slide, Instagram photos. I'd printed them large so everyone could see clearly. Her in a bikini on a white sand beach. Her in a poolside bar holding a tropical drink. Her in a sundress at an outdoor restaurant with ocean views. Her kissing a man by an infinity pool with turquoise water behind them. All the photos time-stamped, all matching the dates she was supposed to be getting chemotherapy. Someone gasped. I think it was her mother. Her hand went to her mouth. Fourth slide. The medical documents she'd shown me 2 years ago. The diagnosis papers. The treatment plan. The doctor's signature. All looking official with the hospital letterhead. Right next to them, blown up large, an official letter from that hospital. On their real letterhead. Signed by their legal department, stating clearly that they had no record of her ever being a patient, that the documents she provided were fraudulent, that the doctor whose name appeared on them did not exist in their system. Fifth slide. Bank statements. 2 years' worth. Every wire transfer highlighted. Every payment documented. Organized by date. The amounts next to each one. At the bottom, in large numbers, the total. $143,000. The silence in that room was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Everyone just stared at that screen. I let it sit there for a moment. Let them absorb it, process it, understand what they were seeing. Then I turned to look at her. Her face had gone completely white. Not pale, white. Like all the blood had drained out of her body. She was frozen, hands gripping the edge of the table, staring at the screen like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Like maybe if she stared hard enough, it would disappear. I spoke. My voice was calm, even, not angry, not emotional, just factual. I said I wanted everyone here to know the truth. That my wife didn't have cancer. That she never had cancer. That for 2 years, while I worked 3 jobs and destroyed my health trying to save her life, she was on vacation with her boyfriend, using money I'd earned. Money our families had donated. Money that friends had given at fundraisers. All of it based on a lie. Her mother made this sound. Not a scream. Not a sob. Something worse. Like a wounded animal. A sound of pure shock and devastation. Her father stood up. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. He was just staring at her. His face had gone red. His hands were shaking. I'd never seen him look like that before. Complete horror mixed with rage. My mother was crying. Really crying. My dad had his arm around her. His jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscles jumping. He looked like he wanted to put his fist through a wall. Her sister said her name. Just her name. Like a question. Like she couldn't believe it. Like she was hoping there was some explanation. Some mistake. My wife tried to say something. Her mouth opened and closed, but nothing came out. No words. No excuses, nothing. She looked around the table at all the faces staring at her. Her parents, her siblings, my family, our friends. All of them looking at her with this mixture of shock and betrayal and disgust. She stood up suddenly, chair falling backward, grabbed her purse, and ran. Just bolted out of that private room. I heard her heels clicking rapidly across the restaurant floor. Then the front door opening and closing. Nobody followed her. Nobody called after her. Nobody moved. The silence continued for what felt like forever. Then her father sat back down heavily, put his face in his hands. Her mother was sobbing, not quiet crying. Deep, body-shaking sobs. Her sister had her arm around her, but she looked shell-shocked herself. My mom came over to me, hugged me, didn't say anything, just held me. My dad stood up and put his hand on my shoulder. Squeezed once, his way of saying he understood, that he was there, that he was proud of how I'd handled it. Her father finally looked up, looked at me directly. His eyes were wet. He said one word, just one, sorry. Then he looked away. I told everyone I was sorry they had to find out this way, that I'd thought they deserved to know the truth, that I hadn't wanted to tell them individually and have to explain it over and over, that this seemed like the most honest way. Nobody disagreed. Nobody defended her. Nobody suggested there might be another explanation, because there wasn't one. The evidence was undeniable, overwhelming, impossible to argue with or explain away. People started leaving pretty quickly after that. Quiet goodbyes. Awkward hugs. Nobody knew what to say. What do you say in a situation like that? There's no playbook for it. Her parents left separately. Her mom was still crying. Her dad looked broken. Aged 10 years and 10 minutes. Her siblings left without saying much. They looked ashamed, embarrassed, like they couldn't believe this was their family now. My family stayed with me for a bit. We moved to the bar. I bought a round of drinks. We didn't really talk about what had just happened. My brother made some comment about me being the coldest person he'd ever met, but he said it with respect, almost admiration, like he couldn't believe I'd pulled it off. I went home that night alone, sat in my apartment that suddenly felt completely different. Like I was seeing it for the first time. All the sacrifices I'd made. The empty spaces where things used to be before I sold them. The IKEA furniture I'd bought cheap to replace the nice stuff we'd had. I didn't feel happy, but I didn't feel sad either. I just felt finished, like I'd completed something, closed a chapter. The weight that had been pressing on my chest for 2 years was gone. She tried calling. Over and over. I didn't answer. Blocked her number. She sent emails. I deleted them without reading. She showed up at my door 2 days later. I saw her through the peephole. Didn't open it. Called my lawyer instead. My lawyer told me I'd done exactly what we'd planned. That the public exposure was perfect. That it showed clear intent to defraud, not just me, but our entire families. That it would help in court. That judges didn't look kindly on this kind of calculated deception. The divorce papers were filed the next week. The divorce proceedings were brutal, but not for me. For her. My lawyer came prepared with everything. Binders full of evidence, the fake medical documents, the investigator's complete report, flight records, hotel reservations, Instagram screenshots, text messages, credit card statements, bank transfers, every single piece of documentation organized chronologically and cross-referenced. We sat in that courtroom and my lawyer presented it all to the judge, methodically, piece by piece, building an undeniable case. The judge's face got harder with every page he reviewed. His jaw kept clenching. At one point he actually took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes like he couldn't believe what he was reading. Her lawyer tried to argue that it was a marital dispute, that the money was community property, so technically she had a right to it, that we should split assets 50-50 like any normal divorce. My lawyer shut that down immediately, pointed out that the money was obtained through fraud, through deliberate deception, through faking a terminal illness, that this wasn't the wife spending marital funds. This was systematic theft based on false pretenses. The judge agreed. When my lawyer finished presenting everything, he actually said out loud that this was one of the most calculated acts of fraud he'd seen in a domestic case. Said it showed clear intent to deceive not just me, but our entire families and community. The ruling came down hard. She got nothing. 0 alimony. 0 claim to any marital assets. Everything we'd accumulated during the marriage went to me because she destroyed the marital trust through fraud. But here's the part that really satisfied me. The judge ordered her to repay me the full $143,000. He classified it as money obtained through fraud under false pretenses. Said it wasn't a marital expense, but a criminal act. She was legally obligated to pay it back on a court-mandated schedule. Monthly payments. With interest. Her lawyer tried to argue she couldn't afford that it would take her decades to pay back that much. The judge said that wasn't his problem. She should have thought about that before committing fraud. He set the payment schedule, and that was that. Her family completely disowned her. Her parents were devastated. They donated thousands of dollars too. Thought they were helping their daughter survive cancer. The betrayal they felt was almost as deep as mine. Last I heard from mutual friends, they haven't spoken to her since that dinner. Won't take her calls. Refused to see her. Her mother told someone that she doesn't have a daughter anymore. Her siblings cut her off too. Her sister tried to maintain contact for a few weeks, but eventually gave up. Said she couldn't handle the lies anymore. That every time they talked, she just kept thinking about what their parents had gone through. The money they'd borrowed. The stress. All of it for nothing. My family rallied around me harder than I expected. My mom came and stayed with me for a couple weeks. Made sure I was eating. Made sure I wasn't just sitting in the dark all day. She didn't push me to talk about it. Just made dinner every night and sat with me while we watched TV. My dad helped me sort through the financial mess. Went through every statement with me. Helped me figure out what debts were mine versus what she'd racked up without telling me. Helped me start rebuilding my credit. Never once made me feel stupid for believing her. As for Marcus, the boyfriend, he disappeared the second everything went public. Turns out he didn't even know she was married. When I tracked him down through social media and sent him copies of everything, proved to him that she had an entire other life she'd been hiding, he blocked her immediately, completely ghosted her. I guess it's one thing to date someone and take luxury vacations. It's another thing to find out you're the other man in an elaborate fraud scheme. He wanted nothing to do with any of it. She tried reaching out to me constantly those first few months, emails every few days, text messages before I blocked her number, long messages saying she was sorry, that it started as a mistake that spiraled out of control, that she'd made terrible choices, but she still loved me, that she wanted to make it right. I never responded. Not once. Deleted her emails without reading them after the first couple. When she showed up at my door, I didn't open it. Just called my lawyer and let her handle it. Because here's the thing, there was nothing she could say. No explanation that would make it okay. No apology that would change what she did. She didn't just cheat on me. She faked cancer. She let me work myself nearly to death. She took money from my parents, her parents, our friends. She looked me in the eyes hundreds of times and lied. Calculated, deliberate, cold. That's not a mistake. That's not something that spirals out of control. That's who she is. And I wanted nothing to do with that person ever again. The first year after everything came out was rough. I'm not gonna lie and pretend I just bounced back like nothing happened. I didn't. I was depressed for a while. Angry. Some mornings, I could barely drag myself out of bed. I'd spent 2 years in survival mode, and now that it was over, I kind of collapsed. But I didn't fall apart. I hit the gym. Started going every day after work. Used it to burn off the anger, the frustration, the feeling of being a complete idiot for 2 years. Physical pain I could control. Physical exhaustion I could manage. Work helped too. My boss had watched me destroy myself for 2 years and then found out why. He gave me a promotion about 6 months after the divorce finalized. Better pay. Better hours. Said I'd earned it. That I'd shown dedication and work ethic that was rare. That he wanted to reward that. The better pay helped. I was still digging out of debt. Still had loans to pay back. But at least I could see progress now. Could see the light at the end of the tunnel. Friends who donated to the fundraisers actually insisted on helping again. Said it wasn't my fault. That they wanted to help me start over. I was hesitant at first. Felt like I'd already taken enough from people. But they were persistent. Eventually, I let them help. Put it toward paying off the medical debt I'd accumulated when I'd neglected my own health for 2 years. Around the 18-month mark, I started dating again. Nothing serious at first. Just trying to remember how to talk to women, how to trust someone, how to be vulnerable without feeling like an idiot. Then I met someone. Through a friend. She's a teacher. Kind, honest, real. We've been together about 8 months now. Taking it slow. She knows my history. Knows what happened. Doesn't judge me for it. Doesn't make me feel stupid for believing the lies. And honestly, it feels right in a way my marriage never actually did. I just didn't realize it at the time. Thought that was what love looked like. Turns out, I had no idea what real love looked like. I don't keep close tabs on my ex-wife, but I hear things sometimes. Through mutual acquaintances. Last I heard, she's working 2 jobs trying to keep up with the court-ordered repayment plan. Lives in a small apartment across town. Drives a beater car. Her social media is basically non-existent now. The public humiliation drove her off most platforms. She's alone. Marcus left. Her family cut her off. Most of our mutual friends sided with me after the truth came out. Who wouldn't? The few who tried to stay neutral eventually drifted away from her anyway. You can't maintain friendships when your entire life was built on lies. I don't take pleasure in her suffering, but I won't pretend I feel bad for her either. She made her choices. She chose to fake cancer. She chose to take money meant for life-saving treatment and spend it on vacation. She chose to let me work myself nearly to death. She chose to lie to everyone who loved her. She chose all of it. Now she's living with the consequences, and honestly, that feels like justice to me. If there's anything I learned from all this, it's that you have to trust your gut. Looking back, there were signs. Small things that didn't add up. And I ignored all of them because I loved her, because I wanted to believe her, because the alternative seemed impossible. But people are capable of things you can't imagine, even people you love, even people you think you know better than anyone. So trust people, but verify. Love people, but don't be blind to who they really are. And if someone shows you their true character, believe them the first time. I gave her everything. My time, my money, my trust, my health, my heart. She took it all and threw it away for something that didn't even last once it was exposed to light. But I survived it. I'm still here. I rebuilt my life. Learned to trust again. Slowly, carefully. And now I'm in a better place than I was, even when I thought my marriage was good. She lost everything. Her family, her reputation, her relationship, her freedom from debt. She destroyed her own life with her choices. And me? I won. Not because I got revenge, though I won't lie. That exposure dinner felt damn good. But because I came out the other side of this stronger, wiser, surrounded by people who genuinely love me. That's the real victory. Not her downfall, but my survival. My comeback. And that's something she can never take away from me.